Ambassador Chiva from Mozambique.
This is Professor Margee Ensign, Vice Chancellor at the United States International University, Africa, on a symposium on Rwanda 29 years after the 1994 genocide against Tutsi. She's talking about the milestone Rwandans achieved after this horrific event. Among the speakers, including Professor Lumumba, a professor of public law, and many others. Students of the USIU-Africa have tons of questions to ask. When I was 11 years old, in 1994, my country Rwanda experienced atrocities of the Tutsi genocide that the world will never forget in the history. More than 1 million people were killed and half of the population fled to neighbor countries, most in the Democratic Republic of Congo. My country was left with nothing except horror stories, with many survivors, including women and children. The country's economy was dead completely. Through his leadership, His Excellency Paul Kagame, the country was reunited and the community members reconciled and agreed to move forward.
Hari mugenzi wacu Serge Ndayizeye kuri radio itafu
However, some other people, including those who committed the genocide crimes, continue to deny the Tutsi genocide, which was confirmed by United Nations Organization UNESCO. Many of these people live in exile in countries like France, Belgium, and Netherlands. Through demonstrations, they have been showing that they don't agree with UNESCO. However, the experts see this as serious denials, but the reality should remain the reality and the truth should be told the way it is.
For people who deny genocide happened in Rwanda in 1994.
So there's two types of denial when we deal with Rwanda. One is the denial of the genocide against the Tutsi, one is denial of the progress. And I would say to those who deny both, look at evidence. Life is not about opinions. It's not about what we think happened. The genocide occurred, over 1 million people were killed. The progress can never be denied. Go to Rwanda, go to the museum, see the graves, talk to people who lived through the genocide. Go to Rwanda, see the progress in economic growth, in poverty reduction, in gender equity, in health improvement and education. We can't close our eyes to progress. We can't move forward if we don't look at evidence. The evidence is so strong. Thank you.
Symposium on Rwanda 29 years after the genocide against Tutsi began by introducing the panelists by Victoria Rubadiri, who is the moderator of this event. Our panelists today include Frederick Golloba Mutebi, a political scientist, Dr. Adoplhe Muleefu, lecturer at University of Rwanda at the College of Arts and Sciences, and Professor Patrick Loch Otieno Lumumba, a professor of public law who is staunch Pan-Africanist. The discussions began with Dr. Adoplhe on the role and responsibility of the institutions and international communities that did not stop the 1994 Tutsi genocide.
And some in the United Republic of Tanzania, some of which we still struggle with the aftermath of it. These aspects probably will have some more to talk about prevention, the role of states, the role of UN, and which state that has the responsibility of individual territorial state where the crime is being prepared, and that of external states. In the case of genocide against the Tutsi, the responsibility to punish been a collective effort, both at national and international level. At national level, Rwanda's ordinary courts were able to prosecute about 7,000 suspects, and at the community level through the Gacaca courts, the VC just talked about it. Lay judges, men and women of integrity, Inyangamugayo as we call them, processed about 2 million cases.
The next speaker is Professor Lumumba, who began by paying full respect to the victims who were killed in 1994, asking everyone to stand up. He reminds the public to reflect back to what happened to the victim in 1994 and those innocent who were killed.
I say so for you young Kenyans who are now toying with what may degenerate. We are gathered here 29 years later to ask ourselves, on the basis of the question that has been posed to me, what is the role of governance in preventing genocide? Having a governance system that creates an environment where the centrifugal forces are not allowed to fester is an act in governance which we must ask ourselves what can be done about it. Today, many African countries are governing or are grappling with a concept called democracy.
The next speaker is Mr. Frederick Golloba Mutebi, a political scientist who explained what steps the Rwanda Patriotic Front RPF took after stopping the genocide. Where he said RPF's first plan was to call all political parties to set up a new government for all Rwandans without ethnicities or any form of separation of the citizens. And Professor Lumumba also brought input into Frederick's.
Fits-all system of governance. My good friend has already indicated the kind of structures that have been introduced in the post-genocide Rwanda, which are sensitive to the realities on the ground. Look at the Gacaca, which was informed by the realization that you must have a justice system which allows for selective memories and allows for healing. If it were not for Gacaca, if we had gone full hog in what is a fairly Eurocentric system, the problems would still be festering. That is in the administration of justice. And I hold the view that Africa must now liberate ourselves from systems that we inherited. You hear the Dutch Roman system. Somebody talking about Dutch Roman system in South Africa. Somebody is talking about the civil system or the common law system. We can have systems that are homegrown, that borrow from other systems. But the bigger, to use this cliche, elephant in the room is the political governance. And once again, no one size fits all. Rwanda has a model. If you go to Ghana, for example, where you have traditional chieftains, what role can traditional rulers play in creating a system of governance that is sensitive to the realities of a globalized world, but allows for coexistence? That would be the Ghanaian model. If you go to Ethiopia, for example, after the revolution and after the overthrow of the Derg regime, they experimented with a system which did not work so well, but they were trying to use something that was Ethiopia-centric. Go to Tanzania, for example. You look at the way this Chama cha Mapinduzi organizes itself. One can go on and on. And I believe that that debate is legitimate now. It is a legitimate debate that each of our countries must now engage in, and engage in with an open mind. What is it that we can do that makes everybody or a critical majority of the people feel that they are included? I want to conclude with an answer, an interview that I saw yesterday. It is a 2000 interview with John Garang Dimabior. John Garang Dimabior was asked, now that you want to create a new nation, how is the architecture of the new nation? He said the new nation that we are going to create is a nation that comprises many nations with different cultures, with different systems of governance. That new nation must borrow from all these nations, and having borrowed from those nations must find a system which is hybrid, which emphasizes the following things: equity, respect for human lives, distribution of all our resources, and lastly, that nation must recognize that the strength of the governance comes from the people. And if the people are weak, the government will be weak. And I find great wisdom in those words of John Garang Dimabior. Thank you.
Time for questions comes in, and the first question is from moderator Miss Victoria Rubadri, who asked how government elected after 1994 was able to bring people together and rise again.
We heard Professor Lumumba allude to the different ethnic groups in different countries. But can you say definitively that the consensus building, the power sharing that is strong features in Rwandan politics have really dissolved that ethnic fault line in Rwanda?
The next question goes to USIU-Africa student who is from South Sudan, who said that this country considers Rwanda as a true friend.
Rwanda and South Sudan are sisterly nations. Apart from sharing the beautiful continent of Africa, we also share the title of the tallest people on earth. So I would direct it to Professor PLO. How did Rwanda government and its civil population engage in the reconciliation process, and what lesson can my country, South Sudan, learn from these approaches? And the other question I would direct to one of the panel members. How did Rwanda address the root causes of the genocidal episodes, and how can South Sudan take a similar approach in addressing its own challenges? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another student also asked about the intention between Rwanda and the Republic Democratic of Congo due to different rebel groups, including FDLR, who committed the genocide in Rwanda. Another student again asked about the 10 Hutu commandments which were established early before the 1994 Tutsi genocide. Now it is time to answer the questions, starting with Professor Lumumba.
And I visit Rwanda at least twice a year. And what I see is a leadership that is focused, a leadership that knows what ought to be done, a leader that has clarity, a leader that has conviction. History has demonstrated that leadership is critical. And such leadership must be a leadership that is capable of bringing people together. You are a student of history. I want you to watch the surrender of the Biafrans in 1967 and the speech delivered by Yakubu Gowon after the Civil War. These were his words. He said, "Brothers, we've been away for too long. I'm happy that you are back." And the commentator, Professor Margee, says, "In circumstances such as these, the victors must not gloat, and the vanquished must not be humiliated. Memories must be selective, but justice must also be administered." I believe that that is what has happened in Rwanda. It is only 29 years. What one wants to see is that that becomes a culture where there is convicted leadership in one direction. Because the followers will always look at what the leadership is doing. If you have good leadership, then you will have good followership. That is the law of politics as I see it. So in a one short sentence answer to your question, selfless leadership.
During the discussion, this person, who is said to be Eritrea ambassador in Kenya, due to emotion over the discussions, he lost his emotion. And this is His Excellency Dr. Richard Masozera, a High Commissioner at Rwanda High Commissioner in Kenya, who suggested that due to time, some more topics can be next time. However, people still want to talk more.
As he very well put it, we should try and keep, with your assistance, moderator, on the core issues that the panelists were addressing. And we can have another session on that very big topic, which was going to eat into the time here. So I think I just want to say, absolutely, we will just keep where we are. And my friend, Professor Golloba, is an academic, so he has to respond. But I think we will try and focus on the key issues. Thank you.
In his closing remarks, His Excellency Dr. Richard Masozera thanked everyone who attended the discussion, especially the USIU-Africa, to host the event. He said that Rwandans do this every year to commemorate those victims and innocent people who were killed in 1994 Tutsi genocide.
One of the most tragic events of the 20th century. This year will be the 29th commemoration. In the period leading up to the 7th of April, the actual day of the commemoration, a number of events are organized. As a country, we deliberately decline to be consumed by our tragic history or even be defined by what happened in 94. You're all aware that our country had been very deeply fractured and had all the hallmarks of a failed state after the 94 genocide against the Tutsi. The people of Rwanda, under the very able and visionary leadership of the RPF, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, decided to collect the remaining pieces, prioritize unity, and redefine where we want to be as a nation and as a people, and collectively work towards that vision.
The event ended by taking pictures of the memory of all guest VIPs who attended the symposium on Rwanda 29 years after the 1994 genocide against Tutsi.